I've loved action movies ever since Arnold showed them to me when I was much younger, and I have grown to love Criterion, so I thought I'd blend those two things together today for you with three recommendations. One that's a little bit controversial, but I think at the end is an action movie, and I'll throw a special shout out to a good action scene in a Western. I have just watched and really appreciated Hard Boiled, the John Woo movie, and so I wanted to mention that in here because it's kind of like the maybe the marquee action film in the collection. It has, double crossing. It has a renegade rogue cop. It has a mole in the department. It has a crime boss. A lot of the different parts of the plot are stuff you've seen before. It might even remind you a little bit of Scorsese's The Departed. It certainly did me multiple times. But what you probably haven't seen, and why I wanted to talk about this film, is that movie goes absolutely bonkers crazy with the action and effects. I mean, I was floored at how good that stuff was. I remember being, years ago getting into Buster Keaton in films like The General, where he did this like amazing, just cool stunt work. Hard Boiled, folks, I don't know how this stunt crew, I don't know how they survived some of that stuff. We're talking hundreds upon hundreds at least. Simulated gunshots, jumps, explosions, stuff breaking and blowing up everywhere. Whether it's a restaurant that's getting shot up and stuff's breaking, like I said, and guys are jumping. And I mean, it's like you can't even keep up with it. Or that very great, awesome end sequence in the hospital. That has to be one of the premier action scenes of any genre. Any label, anywhere. And a lot of it actually sort of reminded me of the Terminator, which I've talked about. I love the Terminator. There's actually a character in there who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be mimicking that to some degree. I don't know. I've only seen the film once. For those of you that know better than I do, you'll have to tell me if you think what I'm thinking is true in the comments. But I mean, like the gunplay, the guys are running around and jumping. Some of it looks like The Matrix, which I'm sure The Matrix took some from this. I mean, it's definitely not realistic. Okay, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like literally, there are characters that might hold a baby while they're like trying not to die from a shootout. But if you look at it as this over-the-top, zealous, great action movie, you're going to have fun because it does succeed in that way. That's my first recommendation. So if you did nothing else from the Criterion Collection for action, you absolutely have to see Hard Boiled. Those of you that like that director or any of his other films, you'll have to let me know your thoughts. But one that's a little bit toned down from that I really liked, and I've liked more the more I've thought about it, is Eastern Condors, which I have the poster here ready. Sammo Hung. This is the disc, and the poster has an essay on the back. And this is about a group of this is kind of a Dirty Dozen plot. A ragtag band of Asian American prisoners are dropped into Vietnam on a sort of a suicide mission to try to get this group of weapons that they don't want the Viet Cong to have. And there's a really creepy, literally giggling martial arts villain in here that's a great fight at the end of this film. But there was a part of the essay that I thought is useful to hear if you've only seen Sammo Hung in kind of ridiculous movies. And it said Eastern Condors marked another important shift in his style. Millionaire Express, the previous movie, which I've seen parts of, I didn't really like, was an all-star farce, alternating among slapstick goofiness, remarkable fight sequences, and some impressive images of men jumping off buildings, some of those that have ever been captured on film. Eastern Condor, by comparison, showed the director mostly abandoning his trademark silliness in favor of the sober approach he felt the movie's war theme deserved. In keeping with the rigor, he subsisted only on a diet of white rice and skinless chicken for months to transform his body into this silent warrior. And you'll see that if you've seen the Ip Man movies, I like those. I like the first three. I didn't really like four as much. And you saw him in Ip Man 2, which I think is the best of those. You're going to get that more serious side at times. I mean, there's definitely this Rambo 2, 3 sense of, 80s action to it and goofiness at times, but it is a little bit more serious than some of his films. And it's a little less kind of hand-to-hand combat, and so there's more shooting and that kind of thing. But there are some really phenomenal scenes nonetheless. And I wanted to read this part. Unlike in Rambo First Blood Part 2, in which Stallone gets to return home after having at least won the war for America by killing a bunch of enemies, Eastern Condors leaves its heroes' futures uncertain. And so that's a little bit, tell you just a little bit to help you out there understand the seriousness of the plot, and while at the same time it can be kind of ridiculous. I mean, there are some moments that certainly are, but I did really like that film, and I think you should see it. I think you should probably get this one. Shout out real quick to Destry Rides Again, because this is a Western with James Stewart, Marlene Dietrich, and it really helped revitalize her career. There is a scene, I bet it talks about it on the back. Well, it sort of does. There's a scene where she has an all-out brawl with another lady, and it's awesome. It's like one of those memorable fights in Western history. There have been plenty of good ones, right? You've seen some good ones with Clint Eastwood or John Wayne or whoever, but there's a good fight scene in here. Okay, my last pick is something that actually is an action movie in its own way. It's more like stunt work of animals and Flow. And bear with me if you haven't seen Flow. I think this is kind of an action movie the more I've thought about it upon reflection. I talked about this on my channel before, but this is a story of friendship and survival of these little animals, lemur, bird, dog, etc. And they end up in a world that's flooded, and they're trying to get away from the flood, and they're like running around, and they're really hyper, and they're just like trying to survive. And there's so much like jumping here from A to B to survive, try to collect this group of goods to not get wet or whatever. There's so much movement and kinetic energy that it's kind of impossible to not think of it as an action film. So in the same way that I talked about some of the stunt work in some of these other movies, which, by the way, is really good in Eastern Condors. I love Sammo Hung and his and the way he can just move. It's awesome. But the animals and stuff in this, that same thing's going on, especially with the lead character, who's a cat, a really adorable cat. It's just constant flow and movement. I mean, I was going through my shelf and I was looking, what all qualifies here? I was like, flow actually does, because it literally never stops flowing. So if you want a lot of energy and a lot of movement and a lot of fun, that's also got a good heartfelt punch where you root for the animals, Flow's really good. And it, like I said, it has some of those action elements, in my opinion. So I thought that might be an interesting little twist on that for you. What do you think? If you like the video and you want to click a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. And tell me what are some of the action films you like from the collection. There are a few I didn't mention on purpose because I've talked about them before on the channel, but I wanted to see what you thought. So let me know in the comments and subscribe to Cody in the Cinema.